Okay, so today let's see the DevOps. What is DevOps? Why DevOps is needed? How DevOps is different from traditional IT, and some DevOps principles. What is DevOps? DevOps is basically a practice which we need to follow during the software lifecycle. So we should the practice is giving set of principles where we have to have plan, code, build, test, release, deploy, operate, and monitor. So this is the way we need to have in development life cycle of any software. So this is also called as continuous delivery. Like you ship your softwares every time with this cycle. And why DevOps is needed? If you have a new features, new ideas, new business requirement, you should go to the market time, like time to market. How long it takes your idea to be converted as a product? It's in 1 day, or it is 3 months, it is in 6 months. So this depends based on the various implementation. You have idea, you have to develop the code, then you have to test the code, then you have once the code is going to production, you have to monitor it. So DevOps makes simple. Your idea can be go into product in very less time, and you with following this Dev, QA, and Ops strategy. How is DevOps different from traditional IT? So software lifecycle was there for a long time. So we used to develop the software in Dev, SIT, and UAT. Then in production, there is a team called operation team who go and install this into the production infrastructure, because if there is some incident that the current ongoing system is not working, then the operation team is responsible of fixing it and supporting it, which consists of service desks where the users will reach them, infrastructure support where there will be a database network, and those are. So this was our traditional system. Any changes to the production will handled by operation team, not by development. So that was our traditional architecture. Now developer will deploy to production. That is what our DevOps culture is. So developer before developing to production, dev SIT UAT to prod, there the complete cycle the developer will do. But what the DevOps is doing here is taking the responsibility of operations as well. So instead of you ship the code into prod and you say I don't care, now you have a code in prod, you have responsibility to make sure that code is working. That's where so instead of I call myself a developer, I call myself as a DevOps, which means I have responsibility in operation as well, where I have to also develop in production. Do I know network? Do I know database? Do I know troubleshooting? That is where this DevOps tools is helping. Let's see in the next slide. So when we talk about DevOps lifecycle, as a developer, I write a code, I test the code, I build the code, I deploy the code. So this is like an infinity loop where this process will keep on rolling. If you see, there's a debug. So when I deploy, if that is not working, then I have to debug and test and build. Again, I have to take feedback, or monitor. And so this is the life cycle of DevOps pattern where it need to be followed. Is the practice which DevOps says you follow this practice for your software life cycle. But how I will practice? So in reality, we need to automate this practice in a way. That's why there is different tools are provided for each of the stages which we told before. So when I talk about code, Git is most commonly used where I keep my code in the Git. When I talk about plan, there it could be a documentation or it could be Jira or Confluence. Build. So there are Maven build, which is Java. There's Gradle build. There is Python. So Maven is the example here. When I do testing, so I use JUnit testing or Selenium. That was the example. When I say release, so I want release is just you are saying 0.01, your next version is going to be released. So I use Jenkins and the code ship here. When I say deploy, that is where I actually move this release to the deploy phase. So we are using Docker, AWS, no, a data center, or it can be Azure, Google. So when I say operate, so I have deployed into AWS. Now I have to operate with some tools. So it can be Ansible, it can be Chef, it can be Kubernetes. So basically looking into my infrastructure, what I have deployed. Then we talk about Monitor. Monitor has Datadog, Splunk, Nagios. So whatever we discussed in the previous slide, the practice we need to follow for DevOps, we can follow the practice with these tools. So now we have to look into this tool and make sure how all these steps in this phases are automated. So before that, let's look into the DevOps principle. So as a DevOps engineer, what I have to consider. So based on the previous slides, first thing, I have to automate everything. Automate everything you can. That is the only way we can go with following all the DevOps practices. Second thing, cross-functional autonomous term. So what is cross-functional? In previous, traditionally, we had database engineer, we have operation team who deploys it. But now as a DevOps engineer, I am going to deploy to the production. So then cross-functional terms. Okay, if I deploy and if a database goes failed, who will handle it? So the terms between you and your operation team, or between you and your developer, between you and your team should be have some autonomous. Like I can do this. Like I will do this, but yeah. So that should be the cross-functional autonomous terms. And create with end in mind. When I say create in end in mind, when you think about automation, you make a script, think what it will cost. Okay, this script, if it runs, will it break the system? What happens if my deployment fails? Then my script should have, if deployment fail, notify. So I have to think, create with the what was the thing action will come. So that, keeping that in the mind, I have to automate. Then as a DevOps engineer, I should be customer centric. What my customer is required. In this case, my customer could be a developer. So what developer is required? My customer could be the operation guys, or my customer could be the application users. So you have to think from, okay, what if my customer is operations, what he need? He need a beautiful dashboard where it shows all the alerts. Okay, if my customer is developer, he needs the access to Git, right? So I have to keep my customer in no first, basically, as a when I do this automation, what is needed for customer. Then we have to take end-to-end responsibility. So initially I say, okay, this is the bug developer will solve, or this is the database issue, infra guy should come. No. Now you have to take end-to-end responsibility of a software where you start writing the code, you deploy the code, you monitor the code, you fix the bug, you again create it. So even though you can't have all the authority, but you should have the responsibility. If there's an issue, even though you can't fix, you have the responsibility to follow up with the team. Then continuous improvement. So when I say CI/CD, we say continuous integration and continuous delivery, but continuous improvement is required for every DevOps engineer. Whenever we automate, we can't automate 100%. Then you reiterate. Okay, this time I will. What if the version number gets automatically made? Okay, you keep on reiterating. If you do something and you just say that it's working, that is not enough. You have to ensure, like, okay, how much you can make Sarvada. So this principle is required for every DevOps engineer who wants to be in the field. I hope this sounds little okay. So let's stop there.